Alright, what's up guys? This is part 2 of the Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be running through basically just the Java syntax, which is, I'll explain that later actually, and some examples of some very simple code, including a Hello World application, which you guys may be familiar with if you've worked with previous languages before. So, let's get started I guess. So, Java syntax. Java syntax is, it's fairly simple, and I guess I'll just start with giving you guys some of the keywords. So these are called access modifiers, and I'll just run through them really quickly, and I'll explain them later. And I forgot that I have to do this. Oops. And then I'll run through data types. And I believe that's all I can think of right now. Let me think about this. Yeah, that's all. Okay. And then finally, just to run through with you guys, after that I'll explain to you what methods are. If I can type right now. Methods, classes, objects, I'll kind of run through that. It's a little bit more advanced stuff. Interfaces, I'll also kind of run through that. That's very advanced stuff as well. And then some simple, just basic Java stuff that I can't really classify. Alright, so access modifiers. So you'll get into this a lot more if you ever do any API development, because this isn't really a necessity towards making normal programs, but basically there are four technically kinds of access modifiers in Java. It's public, protected, private, and default. Default is invisible, which means if you're declaring a type, oh, I should probably do that too. I'll just do this. Class and interface. If you're declaring a type, which is a class or an interface, as well as stuff such as methods, which is void, or whatever the data type of it is, then you're going to want to add an access modifier to it. And an access modifier is basically just the amount of ability that you want other methods, other classes, other objects in general to be able to access that specific thing. So if you want to make a class public completely so that everything can access it, you would say, for example, public class name. That's what you would do. If you wanted to make it so that nothing could access it except for stuff inside of the package, which I'll explain later, you would say protected. Actually, technically, the default would be that you would just say the class name without the default access modifier is anything within the package, and the only difference between that and a protected is that protected allows you to access anything within the class as well as subclasses outside of the package, which gets into polymorphism if you ever end up using that, and it's very advanced stuff, so I won't throw that at you right now. But so protected is pretty advanced, and it basically just stems out of default. Private, you can't declare a type private unless it's a subclass or a subinterface, which I'll get into later probably. I don't know if I will or not. So don't really worry about private right now. And then if it's a data type or a method, then you'd be able to do that fine. Typically, when you're using private on methods or data types, I'm going to call them data types from now. When you're using private on data types, it is only accessible to anything that it's being contained in. So if you have a class, I can't spell it right now. If you have a class, you would enclose it with brackets first of all. And these brackets signify that you have this class and that everything inside of these brackets is related to this class. So let's say you have private int, which is an integer, which is any number between negative 2 billion something and positive 2 billion something. So let's say private int number equals 1. Okay, that number cannot be accessed by anything outside of this class, but it can be accessed as much as it wants to in this class. So let's say you declare another class. If you tried to access class name dot number, it wouldn't work, because first of all it's not static, which I'll also get into, and second of all it's not accessible because it's private, so you can't get to it. However, if you made it public and you made it static, which would allow you to do this, then you could very easily access it. So another thing about static. Static, I can't really give you guys a very explicit definition of it, like the actual like correct definition of it. I can't give you that right now because it's complicated and it's beyond most of your guys' comprehension. For considering how much you already know. If this is if this is the stuff that I have written on here is the only experience you've ever had with Java, then you're not gonna be able to understand it. So I won't get too much into it, but as far as you guys are concerned right now, static allows you to access a variable or a method by typing a dot at the end of the class when you're trying to grab it. So you could say class name dot number if it's static. If it's not static, you can't do that, and you'll have to actually create a class instance. And an instance is just it's an instance of that class. I mean, I can't really explain it any further. It's just it allows you to access all the non-static items inside of that class, and it also, as you can see here, it allows you to work with constructors, and constructors I'll also talk about probably in the next tutorial because it's a little bit more complicated than this. It's not quite just syntax. So so yes, just know about that. And when and another thing about syntax, when you're trying to declare a class that does not have a constructor, you would simply add the empty parentheses right there, and then every Java line ends with the semicolon at the end. And when you're trying to declare an object or change its value, you always put the equal sign before the definition, the declaration, and the new value of it. So, and you can't just go name equals new class name. You have to specifically give it a data type. It's not type safety. There's no type safety in Java, so you can't just, like, for example, in JavaScript, you can't just say var variable equals 2. I mean, you can't do that. It has to be a specific kind of variable. So in that case, you would make it int variable, So just be aware of that. Methods. So when dealing with methods, you'll see void method. And void basically means that there's no return type of this method. Because methods have a thing where they can return an object. So if you make this int method, you have to say return any integer. So for example, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, etc. So it has to return that kind of type. Another example, and I forgot about this, Boolean, would be Boolean method. You would say return false or return true. Also, another thing, I'm stacking a lot of stuff on you guys right now, but once you declare return, you cannot put anything after that whatsoever. So if you do this and then you do this, it will not work for you. It'll cause a disruption and it'll cause an error in the JVM, the Java Virtual Machine, because it's not allowed. You have to do everything before the return statement. Okay, so that's all I can really talk about for that. So I guess I'll just run through all the data types. Int, I've already told you guys, that's an integer. And then shorts are anything between -65, 536 and 65, 536. So that's something to keep in mind. Then for longs, you have a huge number that I'm not even going to go into right now. Bytes can be between, I don't know why I'm writing that, bytes can be between -255 and 255. Strings are just letters. They can also be numbers, symbols, whatever. So strings are probably the most generic type available in Java. Chars are single characters, so char c equals blah, if it would be an example of that. Booleans are true or false statements, so if you have Boolean this is Java, you would say true. I almost wrote false for some reason. So you can also write false. Methods. Methods, like, I think I already explained. Yeah, I already explained methods to you guys. So classes are essentially just parts of Java. I don't really want to get into specifically what classes are because, again, a lot of this stuff is beyond comprehension for most people that are just learning the language, because there's a lot of advanced techniques, a lot of advanced ideas that go into this kind of stuff, and a thing that some of you guys may be familiar with, called object-oriented programming, is required when I'm trying to explain this properly, so I can't really explain them thoroughly, so sorry about that. But as far as you guys need to know, classes are ways that you write Java code. you have to create a class in order to put code into it. So objects are data types. These kinds of data types, they're methods, interfaces, classes. Everything's an object at the root. Voids already explained, and here's an example Java program actually. So I think I'll just drop this down here. So you might say class, my class, and inside of this class you can say public static void main string args. Now I haven't showed you guys this yet before, but this is the entry point of a Java program. Every program, in order to actually be executed, has to have this in it. So if you're creating a library, it doesn't have to have this in it. In fact, it probably shouldn't. But if you're creating an executable program, you have to have this method in it. It's a method already reserved by the Java VM, so you can't create a method saying void main string args unless you expect it to be the entry point. So string right here, this is an array of strings, and specifically this array is the array of strings that get written into the command prompt when you actually execute this Java class. So, for example, if I were to write Java my class, I'll show you guys some command prompt stuff later. Actually, I'll show you guys how to use Eclipse, which is much easier to use, rather than using the command prompt. This would be an arg, this would be an arg, this would be an arg, and this would be an arg. So it's just any arguments, any spaces after the class as you type it into the command prompt. Any spaces are considered arguments. So, for example, if you're creating a program that depends on a specific variable to be inputted to determine how it runs, then you would put it in here. So, yeah, so a simple usage of Java. You would type in system.out.println, and then inside of that you'd put the argument for the string you would want to print. So hello world. Now, if you were to run this program, it would show up the command prompt, and it would type hello world into the box, and that's what you would see visualized on the screen. So it's very simple, and you guys can go ahead and try this yourself. Actually, just copy this code right here and put it into your text editor, save it as .java, and I will continue with the next tutorial probably tomorrow, maybe the day after, and I'll show you guys how to use Eclipse, which is an integrated development environment, which is basically just a cleaner, more convenient environment where you can develop in Java. So it's better than the command prompt and using stuff in like Notepad++. So but yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you all for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in the next video.